Is the mic okay? All right. I'm obviously don't do a lot of public speaking. I'm amazed by how many people came on such short notice. I want to thank. But even though I'm the one who's up here talking, I want to make sure no one gives me any credit for organizing this event. That goes to my mom, who's as usual not paying attention. I'm sure she thought that once I became a dad, had kids, became a doctor, that I could do things like organize parties for my kids. Little did she know, a mother's work, as most of the mothers in the audience know, never ends. In all seriousness, though, thank you all for your support for the past 2.5 years. It really has been a source of strength for all of us. Now, I realize that most kiddie parties do not have fathers who give speeches. Unfortunately for Shani and Maya, their fathers always had strange ideas. They'll find out soon enough. A significant part of me wanted this occasion to be no different than any other meet and greet, though I have to say I've never been to a 2.5-year-old meet and greet. But not acknowledging the events of the last 2 years seemed strange and somehow wrong. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the 2.5-year-old that you're meeting today. And I know you're meeting Maya as well, but she so far has proven to be very boring in her first 3 months of life. But believe me, I'm overjoyed by boring. So Ishani came into our lives. So Ishani came into our lives as a surprise, December the 29th, 2006. She was born 8 weeks early, that's why she was a surprise. And she was tiny. She was 4 pounds. Yes, Ishani, that's you. She spent what seemed to be a very uneventful 3 weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit, and I remember thinking that the worst was behind us. I've never been quite so wrong in my life. She was 3 months old. It was a Wednesday, and I clearly remember Pikai asking me to look at the corner of her eyes to see if I thought they were yellow. I agreed with her, and I thought, yeah, they're the teeniest but yellow. And the next day, Pikai made an appointment with the general pediatrician. On the following day, she had an appointment with the pediatric gastroenterologist at CHOP in Philadelphia. And I still didn't think anything of it. You know, Shani was growing. She was hitting all of her developmental milestones, and I didn't think it was important enough to even take time out of my, so-called busy day to go to the doctor's appointment with Pikai. And then that Friday afternoon, my life, or everything changed. Pikai called to tell me that the pediatrician thought Ishani had biliary atresia and wanted to admit her to the hospital. We found out Ishani had been born with biliary atresia. Her liver was incomplete. Its cells could still fulfill some of the important duties that the liver does, such as building and breaking proteins, sugars, and fats, which is why Ishani looks so normal to us, but it lacked something very basic. It lacked a basic tubular duct that normally transmits bile produced by the liver as a byproduct and transmits it to the intestines. So this is this little duct here that heads from the liver to the intestines down here. And this duct is the culmination of millions of little tiny ducts that come from the liver and ultimately form this superhighway. This duct transmits bile into the intestines, which is what gives stool its brownish yellow color. When this duct is blocked by some obstruction, or simply never fails to form in the womb, as in biliary atresia, the bile products of the liver cannot be discharged and seek another way out. The bile spills into the blood, it's transmitted, the blood carries it to the skin gets a sickly yellow look, it also transmits it to the eyes, and the eyes start to turn a greenish yellow hue. Unfortunately, it's more than just a cosmetic problem, because the bile that builds up in the liver starts to irreversibly damage the liver. And now the liver can no longer do the important things that I was talking about before. It also can't coagulate the blood, that needs to clot, and blood that freely flowed through the liver searches for other avenues around the liver. So consequently, thin-walled, engorged blood vessels form, which are prone to rupture and bleed. Biliary atresia was regarded As the blackest of pediatric diseases, victims of the disease seem normal at first, and they remain that way long enough to come into their new families, be loved, and leave images which have no time to be created by hapless babies who die soon after being born. The children with biliary atresia have personalities and smiles for their parents, but as the disease progresses, their bodies are marked by thin and easily broken limbs that come off of increasingly bloated bodies made so by the accumulation of free fluid in the abdominal cavity. When death finally does come, it comes from coma caused by liver failure or catastrophic bleeding. The next step for Shani would be to get a kasai, a procedure which involves attaching a loop of intestine to the underside of the liver to give the bile a place to go. The idea in the procedure, attaching a loop of intestine to the underside of the liver, is utterly preposterous. It's remarkable that it works at all. Unbelievably, 20% of children who get these kasais make it to adulthood with their own liver. Remarkably, her liver numbers normalize after the kasai, and we hope that once again the worst was behind us. Once again, I was wrong. 1 week into cardiology fellowship, July of 2007, I got another call from Hikai. Ishani's stool was white. Her kasai was not working. The next months were nothing short of excruciating. I'd taken care of plenty of adult patients with end-stage liver disease. Their abdomen swells and bloats with fluid. Their eyes take on an orangish-yellow hue. Their liver shrinks, their spleen swells, and their eyes take on a vacant stare as toxins that the liver did take care of now start to affect the brain. I watched my daughter start to progress down that same horrifying path. I watched as her eyes became yellow, her skin developed a yellowish hue, her spleen enlarged, her belly became noticeably bigger, and her liver began to get firmer as it frantically started to lay down connective tissue in a misguided attempt to repair itself. We tolerated repeated treatments with IV antibiotics. Blood work that was repeated often enough to make Ishani anemic. All with the waning hope that the kasai would start working again. As Ishani's body slowly started to let her down, her mind stayed sharp. She continued to make us laugh, but I quietly shed tears of frustration because I knew that I was losing her. All these pictures were taken after Shani's kasai failed. I told you she made us laugh a lot. This is Ishani's one-year birthday party. This is December of 2007. There didn't seem a whole lot to be happy about the time, but we got her 2 balloons and stuck them on her high chair, and she was fascinated. I don't know how well you guys can see this in the back. There is a desperation that I see sometimes in the eyes of loved ones of patients I take care of who are dying. Every parent of a sick child unfortunately has it. I was no different. I had read briefly upon Ishani's diagnosis that biliary atresia was the most common reason for a pediatric liver transplant. But even as a doctor, and perhaps more so, I was scared of the word transplant. I had not trained at an institution that did liver transplants. We did a fair number of heart transplants, and from what I knew about heart transplants was that median survival for a heart transplant at the time was 10 years. And it meant a lifetime of pretty significant immunosuppression. When I first heard about it, my immediate reaction was that it wasn't worth it. But then I read about a boy named Benny and a man named Starzo.